vaccination.
Joining us now, Eli Klein, owner of the Eli Klein Art Gallery, and Jesse Wohlers, general manager of Leyenda, a restaurant in Brooklyn. I had to work hard to say that correctly, Jesse, so thanks so much for both of you for being with us. I had the chairman of Equinox in here yesterday, Jesse, and he was telling me that Equinox was instituting a vaccine requirement for customers, anyone who wants to work out in the gym, and they polled customers and gym members, and it was a wildly popular notion. So what are you hearing, and how do you feel about this?
Well, so far we've had a similar response from the general public. Anybody that we have spoken to in regards to reservations or parties or just general questions that we field through email or through phone calls, at least, I don't know, maybe 10 people a day are saying, oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate that you're doing, fully vaccinated indoors. We feel more comfortable. We weren't going to go out, but now we know we have a safe space where we can go and just kind of relax a little bit. And not to ostracize anybody, we still do, we welcome everyone, but it's just if you're not vaccinated or if you do not have proof of vaccination, we're happy to accommodate people outside in our patio space. So we're not saying, you can't come in here, you can't be part of the festivities, but, we do think it's a little bit more of an incentive for New Yorkers to be a little bit more socially responsible.
Staff, do you feel safer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our entire staff is vaccinated. We were vaccinated as soon as we could be. The owners and I, we really try to make a point to provide as much information as possible to our staff. We meet with our staff periodically, individually and collectively, to find out, what their feelings are, to try to work through the trauma with them of the last year and a half. We take their comfort and safety extremely seriously. And we just want to make sure everybody is comfortable, and we give everybody their own platform to kind of have that discussion with us.
Eli, you feel differently?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, it's their business and their prerogative, and I certainly support their ability to make rules. Would I make the same rules at my art gallery? Definitely not. Do I feel unsafe around unvaccinated people? No, I'm confident in my vaccine. It protects me, and I'm not worried if other people are vaccinated or not.
But you don't want this citywide requirement?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I think there's no place for government to mandate that all restaurants that all restaurants have a vaccine requirement or a vaccine verification system.
For indoor seating.
Well, you say for indoor seating, but
it is for indoor seating.
Right.
That's why I say.
Right, but 2 nights ago, my wife's family, her parents are here from Indonesia, and they went to a restaurant here in Manhattan's West Village. They went to sit outside on the patio, as you said, and her parents were refused service because of their foreign vaccines that weren't sufficient enough, because the whole entire restaurant was necessitated vaccines. So, that was an extraordinarily uncomfortable situation. My wife told me, and I went to the restaurant and explained to them why we wouldn't be eating there again. This is a place that we've been to many times, and a terrific restaurant in the West Village. I really, I couldn't believe it. I think that we have to be very careful about this kind of, vaccine status bigotry. And while her restaurant has the ability to do whatever they want, for me personally, I also have the ability to avoid establishments that are, in a sense, or not in a sense, but in reality, banning first kids.
They're not banning kids.
Okay, I mean, there was no clarification on 12 and under.
They say they're working through that, but there's no indication whatsoever that kids will be banned.
There's no indication that they won't be banned.
I bet you. I bet you kids aren't going to be banned.
We'll see. They're unvaccinated, right?
Yeah.
Kids are allowed in,
Yeah.
and people who are unvaccinated are obviously
and likewise, they say they're still working through the rules with foreign vaccination. I'm sorry if that happened to your wife's parents, but that's not part of these citywide rules.
But they haven't approved the foreign vaccination yet. So we're a city that, of course, needs tourism, and that would be necessary. But another problem is, and I got at this last time a bit, is that the majority of black people in New York aren't vaccinated. And while this may be somewhat of an incentive, it still is absolutely a discriminatory policy.
And 100% of all people of all races over the age of 12 are eligible for
Absolutely.
vaccines, and they're free
Right.
and abundant.
But that doesn't mean it's not discriminatory. You can apply that same logic to many different scenarios.
How do you argue that vaccinations, the act of vaccinations, are discriminatory?
The fact that over 60% of black New Yorkers aren't vaccinated, in and of itself, by banning unvaccinated people from restaurants, is discriminating against that population.
Yes.
There's no question about it.
Well, nobody's banning anybody from restaurants. I'm so sorry that your wife had that experience. That's absolutely should not be indicative of what this all means. Now, obviously, each restaurant, owners, management, staff are all working through their own trauma of the last year and a half of, this crazy virus. And I can only speak for my restaurant. I can only represent my restaurant and my staff. But we, definitely don't discriminate against people that aren't vaccinated. Obviously, people are free to make their own choices, and we do try to accommodate people no matter what. Children are but for us, are going to be allowed into the restaurant. People that are unvaccinated can certainly come into the restaurant to use the restroom as long as they have masks. We even try to help guests that have been vaccinated but don't know how to sign up for the Excelsior Pass or anything like that. Like, I stood outside the other night and showed 3 different people how to download the app on their phone. It only takes a couple of minutes, and we have signage everywhere that suggests that we're happy to provide masks, that we're happy to work through the process with people. And as the general manager, I put myself on the front line to see how it's going to go, see what the response is, to be able to kind of mitigate any sort of issues, and then report back to the staff and be like, this is the rhetoric that you need to use. You need to be kind, you need to be gentle. Nobody is supposed to make anybody feel uncomfortable.
What about restaurants in the poorer areas of New York where a lot of their customers are unvaccinated at disproportional rates? What happens when a substantial percentage, when they're forced to require vaccine verification for their clientele to enter, and they lose 20% of their business? As a restaurateur, the margins are small. These are restaurants that have been crushed throughout the city, and not everyone is in Manhattan or ritzy parts of Brooklyn. There's restaurants, stores, and other establishments that simply can't afford to lose a substantial portion of their clientele, and they have family support, they have staff.
Absolutely.
This would absolutely destroy people. I have no problem with your ability to make the rules in your own restaurant. My problem is with the government mandating this sweeping vaccine verification rule that applies to every single restaurant in New York City.
Well, what confuses me is that you seem very, very involved in what restaurants are doing, as opposed to talking about your art gallery and how it affects you. Now, are you going to dine in these places? Are you suggesting that because you had one bad experience, this is going to be how it is for all New Yorkers?
I will avoid this kind of vaccine status bigotry as much as possible. As I said,
fine, and that's absolutely
right.
right.
Absolutely. You asked them.
Mike McConish, I will note, and we have to run through our time here, notes that he thinks that vaccinated people have been discriminated against by many of the policies they've seen by not accommodating their choice to be healthy, and they're being forced in some instances to be side by side with the unhealthy, and it's a bit of the tail wagging the dog. So that argument can work both ways. Eli, Jesse, thank you both.
Thanks so much for having us.
I appreciate it. This morning, New York Governor